Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program live on our Facebook page at Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can catch up this program on our YouTube channel on the same page, Radyo Pilipinas World Service. And you can also hear us live on our audio streaming at Evox PBS Receiver app. So join us for another edition of Front and Center with your host, Jerome Toledo.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has restored a policy regarding national infrastructure projects in localities. President Marcos has announced that the government will bring back a rule requiring local government units to formally accept national infrastructure projects in their areas before they can be considered complete. This policy was previously abolished by the past administration. The President explained that this rule is a crucial safeguard to ensure the quality of projects that was funded by the national government. He stated that when he was a governor of Ilocos Norte, a project couldn't be declared complete until the local government units gave its formal acceptance. This process allowed local officials to verify that the work was done properly and to a highest standard. And this ruling that was restored by the President is important as it emphasized the significance of having clearance from local officials, including barangay chairmen, mayors, and provincial governors. He stated that this is how local governments can ensure that projects are well built, correctly executed, and not overpriced. And the President's decision was prompted by his discovery of anomalous flood control projects, where he learned that the LGU's authority to accept projects was no longer in practice. This suggests that the lack of this oversight contributed to issues like ghost projects or substandard work. Now, here's the government plan to address the corruption. As part of its broader effort to address corruption in infrastructure projects, continued the flood control projects with safeguards, and despite the issues surrounding the flood control projects, the 300 billion peso allocation for flood control projects will continue. However, the new LG acceptance rule will be a new factor applied to all future projects, ensuring that they are properly managed from proposal until to completion of the project. And the cancellation of some projects as a result of the investigation into fraudulent and substandard work, the President has ordered the cancellation of some locally funded flood control projects of the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, for the next year. And the funds from these canceled projects, amounting to 255.5 billion pesos, will be reallocated to other priority programs in crucial sectors like health, education, social welfare, and agriculture. And that shows that the government's commitment to shifting resources from potentially corrupt areas to more impactful and meaningful social services. Creation of an independent, the President rather, has established the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or the ICI. And its main role is to investigate irregularities in flood control projects over the past decade. And that goal is to hold accountable not only government officials and personnel, but also private individuals who have benefited and misused public funds. And that indicates a serious effort to punish those responsible for the corruption. And in summary, that significant policy shift in the implementing infrastructure project is aimed at improving accountability and quality in national infrastructure projects by empowering local government. So that's what civil society groups and ordinary taxpayers are calling for. That's for accountability and quality in national infrastructure projects. And this action is a direct response to the discovery of a widespread corruption, with the government taking steps to investigate the past wrongdoings, reallocate funds, and put the new safeguards in place to prevent future issues.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
And on that issue, we will try to get a local government official regarding this new policy, what's going to be their reaction, and how they can coordinate with the national government regarding the implementing this restored ruling on national government projects in local government units. Meanwhile, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has visited Mariano Marcos Memorial Hospital and Medical Center in Ilocos Norte, his hometown. And from there, he checked on the implementation of the zero balance billing policy and his administration's commitment to universal healthcare to all Filipinos. And the zero balance billing policy is a healthcare initiative that aims to eliminate out-of-pocket expenses for patients. Eligible patients would not to pay anything for the hospital bills, as the costs are fully covered by the government and other partner institutions. And that policy is in line with administration's broader goal of providing universal healthcare to all Filipinos. And this policy has already benefited more than 60,000 patients under the Marcos Jr. administration, covering a total of 1.43 billion pesos in hospitalization costs. The President's visit to the said regional hospital will serve as a public demonstration of the policy success, featuring specific patients who had their medical bills fully paid. And the President's visit to the hospital and his emphasis on this policy demonstrates a focus on making healthcare accessible and affordable for ordinary Filipinos. And by showcasing individual patients who benefited, the administration aims to make the policy's impact more tangible and be felt by the Filipino public. And the visit also highlighted a focus on not just on the outpatient care, but also on maternal as well as child and critical care services, indicating a comprehensive approach to healthcare reform, or meaning to say a whole of a nation approach in healthcare reform. And this initiative is part of the ongoing efforts to strengthen the country's healthcare system and align with the principle of the universal healthcare, which aims to ensure that all people have access to the health services they need without facing financial hardships, and at the same time they are not shelling out money to pay medical expenses.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
More developments here in the Philippines as Front and Center returns here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
This is a public service announcement.
Discipline is the key. Umiwas sa aksidente sa daan. Ang pagmamaneho ay may kaakibat na responsibilidad, hindi basta mapaandar lang ang sasakyan. Kilatisin ang sarili, ang kahandaan sa manibela, siguruhing inyong konsentrasyon ay hindi magagambala. Importante rin na ating laging isipin, init ng ulo ay huwag pairalin, bagkus kaligtasan ng lahat ang siyang dapat unahin. Isang mahalagang paalala mula sa Presidential Broadcast Service at Radyo Pilipinas, Radyo Publiko 738.
This is a public service announcement
from
PBS Presidential Broadcast Service at Radyo Pilipinas, Radyo Publiko, 738.
Paliwanag mo sa tao na hindi totoo yan.
Dahil ang totoo, yung totoo ang dapat ninyong malaman.
Nagkalat sa internet ang fake news
Ang
o
ginagawa
mali
ng
at
fake news, tinatapon niyo yung tao.
What they are doing is creating panic.
We say no.
Yung pagkalat ng fake news. And some of it's dangerous.
Sana iwasan po natin pag-spread ng fake news.
At di magpapakalat ng disinformation at misinformation ang kasulukuyang administrasyon.
Stop telling us fake news because you're wrong.
Para sa totoo at mapagkakatiwalaang mga balita at impormasyon, Radyo Pilipinas.
Mas pinadali na ang government transactions sa tulong ng eGov.ph Super App. Pwedeng-pwede mo nang magawa ang lahat ng ito. I-download ang eGov app sa iyong smartphone o tablet mula sa App Store o Google Play Store. Pagkatapos, ilagay ang iyong mobile number at i-authenticate gamit ang one-time PIN o OTP para marehistro ang iyong account. Saka ilagay ang iyong mga pangunahing impormasyon at kumpletuhin ang facial recognition technology para sa verifikasyon ng iyong pagkakakilanlan. Para sa mas mabilis at mas maayos na serbisyong panggobyerno, gamitin na ang eGov.ph Super App.
And center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome back to Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Still with me, Jerome Toledo. And President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has announced a significant realignment of public funds from flood control projects to various social and economic programs. The core message of that realignment is a commitment to fiscal responsibility, and that ensures that taxpayers' money is being used appropriately, transparently, and efficiently and effectively to improve the lives of Filipinos. The President's statement also emphasizes a shift in government's approach to spending. He viewed the government not as the owner of public funds but as a custodian or guardian of the people's money. And this viewpoint suggests a move toward greater accountability and transparency. The phrase and it directly addresses public concerns about the past corruption and mismanagement in large-scale infrastructure projects, such as those related to flood control projects. And the realignment of the 255.55 billion pesos, the most significant action outlined is the cancellation of all the projects locally funded fund control projects proposed for next year's national budget. And that massive amount is being redirected now to a wide range of social and economic initiatives. We mentioned about the education as well as the health and some social services. It will be transferred from there. And this move indicates a re-evaluation of government priorities, shifting to what the administration perceives as abusive or inefficient spending on infrastructure towards more direct and people-centered programs. And the funds are being distributed across several key government departments to support programs that directly impact the daily lives of citizens. Social welfare and also the largest chunk rather, which is 35.91 billion pesos, is going to the Department of Social Welfare and Development to boost programs like its Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program or 4Ps in assistance for individuals in crisis situation. Meanwhile, the Department of Education will receive 26.55 billion pesos for its projects like classroom construction, school feeding, and the implementation the academic recovery and accessible learning or ARAL program. And that investment aims to address the country's persistent challenges in educational infrastructure and learning outcomes. Also, 89.28 billion pesos will be allocated to the health sector, particularly the Department of Health and the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation. And that includes the medical assistance to the indigent, establishing more hospitals nationwide, and substantial 60 billion pesos for PhilHealth's new programs, indicating a strong push to public health services and universal healthcare coverage. And that includes expanding more benefits and packages to its PhilHealth members. Meanwhile, the Department of Agriculture is getting a almost 40 billion peso for projects like farm-to-market roads and post-harvest facilities, which is essential for food security, while 18 billion pesos is going to the Department of Labor and Employment to support the livelihood programs for displaced workers. And the remaining fund will be spread across other sectors, including the transportation, scholarships, and technology. That's demonstrating a broad approach to national development. And that move is a bold political statement that focus at building public trust by demonstrating that the government is actively prioritizing social services and a more direct return on investments for taxpayers' money.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Turning the discussion now on the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, the ICI that was created on September 11 of this year by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. through Executive Order Number 94. And its mandate is to investigate the alleged corruption, irregularities, and misuse of funds and government flood control and other infrastructure projects that have taken place over the past decade. And that was the establishment of the Independent Commission is a response to President Marcos' public statement during his State of the Nation address last July, where he expressed anger over the corrupt practices that was happening in flood control projects that affects ordinary Filipinos. And then to aid the commission's work, President Marcos Jr. appointed Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong as its special advisor, and he was chosen due to his strong reputation for integrity, and he has an extensive background as an investigator, while he previously led the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group or CIDG. And his role was specifically to act as an investigator for the commission. However, the situation became complicated when questions arose regarding a potential conflict of interest on Magalong's part, and even President Marcos Jr. Was informed about the conflict of interest that Mayor Magalong will be involved too. So this question stemmed from a 110 million peso tennis court project in Baguio City, which was awarded to the St. Gerard Construction Company in 2022. And that company is owned by couple Zezara and Pacifico Discaya, who are also under scrutiny for their alleged involvement in problematic flood control projects that was being investigated by the ICI. And in response to that concerns, the palace announced that President Marcos had ordered his legal team, just like we mentioned earlier, to review the Magalong's role to determine whether his designation was proper and if it compromised ICI's independence. And that move by the palace was aimed to ensure that the commission's work would remain above suspicion. And as the conflict of interest surfaced, Mayor Magalong tendered his resignation as a special advisor to the ICI in a letter to President Marcos Jr. on Friday. He stated in his resignation letter that the palace pronouncement have undermined the role and mandate entrusted to him. He also added that circumstances that already cast doubts on the independence of the commission, it has become clear to him that his service is no longer tenable and needed. And Mayor Magalong's decision, as explained in a subsequent statement, was to protect the integrity of the fight against corruption. And he maintained rather that there was no conflict of interest in his role, but chose to step aside to prevent any doubts from weakening the Commission's credibility and mandate. He also reassured that the public that he had not neglected his duties as Baguio City Mayor, which he described as being at the core of his public service. And Presidential Communications Office called the Magalong's resignation as unfortunate, and they regret that Magalong left the commission or stepped down as special advisor of the commission. However, Secretary Gomez emphasized in a statement that the ICI's work would not be hampered. And Secretary Gomez underscored the idea that the public's trust in the commission is greater than any one individual. And he stressed that the palace respects commission's autonomy and wants to allow it to fulfill its mandate without interference. And the palace position is that while Magalong's resignation is regrettable, the ICI, composed of professionals with unquestionable integrity, will continue its crucial work of ensuring transparency and accountability in government infrastructure projects.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Lastly, the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, reiterated that the recent visit of officials from the Philippine Embassy in the Netherlands to former President Rodrigo Duterte was made in a professional, non-intrusive, and respectful manner. In a statement, the agency cited the International Criminal Court's ICC as saying that visits at its detention center are strictly conducted with approval or at the request of the person in detention, particularly the former president, which is former President Rodrigo Duterte. And as to the former president's health condition, the DFA said the Philippine government has no information on such matter, and inquiries about it are the best referred to the ICC spokesperson, meaning to say the whole story will be pointed to the ICC, and the ICC can only answer regarding the condition of the former president. The statement came after Vice President Sara Duterte described the visit as a sham welfare check without permission from the family. And the Vice President also reported that the family received information that the former chief executive had to be subjected to laboratory tests after being found unconscious on the floor of his detention cell. The ICC has yet to respond when asked about the report.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
And with that, we now conclude this edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Together with our technical team headed by Ms. Susan Aison, and to our Warcast operator, we have Justin Osias. And we have on the audio streaming, we have Mr. Leo Magpayo. This is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.